Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Ozcast.
Okay, so let's jump right into it today. We're going to take a deep dive into the Gaza ceasefire talks. And, it's a pretty tense situation right now.
Definitely, yeah.
We're looking at this really fragile three-phase ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. And that first 6-week phase, it's set to expire in just 2 days. So, the big question everybody's asking is, will it hold?
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of sources here to kind of help us break down what's going on. We got a recent Reuters report that's kind of covering President Trump's take on the talks. And then also some insight into Keir Starmer's position on a two-state solution.
Yeah, it's a critical moment for sure.
Yeah.
These talks are happening after another pretty devastating conflict, and the results of these talks are really going to impact so many lives.
Exactly. And speaking of impacts,
Yeah.
The Reuters report mentioned President Trump calling the talks pretty good.
Yeah.
But he didn't give a lot of specifics.
Right.
What's your take on that lack of detail?
Well, I think that lack of detail is pretty typical of President Trump. It's his typical style of communication.
Yeah.
But you're right, in this kind of delicate situation, it does leave a lot open to interpretation.
Right.
What does pretty good actually mean,
I know, exactly. And with that ticking clock,
Yeah.
2 days away, I'm curious about the pressure that puts on the negotiators.
Yeah.
What happens if they can't reach an agreement?
Oh, the pressure's immense. If the talks fail, we could easily see a return to violence. And you know what that means. It means more suffering for civilians.
Yeah.
It means a deepening of the conflict and a potential humanitarian crisis.
Yeah.
So, as we said, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Definitely. And to add on to that tension, the report also mentions accusations from both Israel and Hamas about ceasefire violations already happening.
Right.
That's not exactly reassuring, is it?
No, it's not. It's a major concern. And it really begs the question, are these violations just isolated incidents? Or are they a sign of a much deeper problem, a lack of commitment to the ceasefire? And I think it's important to remember that enforcing a ceasefire in a place like Gaza is incredibly difficult. It's a very complex environment, long history of conflict there.
Right. And, speaking of that human cost of the conflict, the report also touched on the UN's concern about the condition of released hostages and detainees.
Yeah.
Makes you think about the individuals, caught in the middle of all of this.
Absolutely. It reminds us that we're not just talking about political strategy here. We're talking about real people's lives. And there's a major humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza right now. Displacement, hunger trauma, the need for aid and some long-term solutions is absolutely critical.
Right. And that kind of brings us up to, I think, another key point in the report. It seems like there are some contrasting viewpoints.
Yeah.
On how to actually move forward here. Starmer's pushing for a two-state solution, basically an independent Palestinian state alongside Israel, while we've got Trump's previous proposal involved the U.S. taking control of Gaza, which would essentially displace Palestinians permanently.
Yeah, and that difference in opinion is huge. The two-state solution has broad international support, while Trump's plan drew a lot of criticism and was even labeled by some as ethnic cleansing because, it ignored Palestinian claims to land and self-determination, which are core components of the two-state solution.
Right. So where do we go from here? We got accusations flying a deadline, looming, the humanitarian crisis unfolding. What are the possible paths to peace in all of this?
Well, it's incredibly complex. There's deep mistrust between the two sides. There's security concerns for Israel, and then there's the humanitarian and political needs of the Palestinians. And then on top of all of that, you've got, the interests of global powers all mixed in.
A lot to unpack for sure. What do you think, listener? What stands out to you in all of this?
Yeah, here's something to think about. Given the, depth of this mistrust and all of the sort of seemingly opposing goals, Is a lasting peace agreement even realistic? And if so, what kind of compromises would it take from both sides to make it happen?
A powerful question to consider. As we continue to follow this unfolding situation, we encourage you to stay informed and engaged. The story is far from over. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.